It's been a while since we sat down.
Is it 2 weeks?
Yeah, it's been 2 weeks. We've had a lot going on in our lives.
Yeah.
Well, how was Delhi?
Delhi was cute. It was really nice to, like, be somewhere else.
And be able to go out.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all just so used to being at home now. So, like, that, I don't know. It was nice, but, like, you know.
Also a little weird. I realized I get a little bit of anxiety when I'm around people now.
I mean, I did. And I think I've just gotten to this point where I'm like, ugh. It's just been so long and you just want some normalcy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. We're not there yet in Bombay. Oh, yeah, what are we talking about?
We're talking about
being
brown girls.
The brown girls are talking about being brown girls, exactly. That is today's topic of conversation and kind of our inspiration a little bit behind the whole podcast.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think we started talking about our experiences outside of India, like as Indians, and then moving back and how things have been so different for us and how we still feel out of place sometimes.
A little alien, yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we also moved to India at different times in our points in our lives where I came. When did I come? I came a while ago. But basically I did some amount of school here and then went to Cody where I met you.
Yes.
And I feel like when I first moved back it was such a big shift for me. I lived in Budapest all my life. I was born there and then I was the Indian girl there and then I came back, or didn't come back, but I moved here and I became like the Hungarian girl. But
that's like specific.
It was because like also how many people do you meet that were born in Budapest, Hungary? So it really became like my identity that I was like the Hungarian girl with the American accent and like that was my label. And so I've always kind of been this TCK kid.
Yeah, I mean, my only experience in school in India was in Cody for like that one year. And I was just, the Dubai girl. There was no other way around it. It was just, you're born in Dubai, raised in Dubai. Like, I was like, yeah, but I lived in Singapore for 3 years. Yeah, whatever. You're a Dubai girl. You're a Dubai girl. That's it. And then I think even like moving to the UK for uni and stuff afterwards, I was just, no one could place me.
Yeah, same.
Did you have that as
I
well?
did. Yeah. The whole time people thought, I got like all kinds of different guesses. A lot of people thought I was like South American. South American is favorite. Brazilian number one always.
Oh, I always used to get Argentinian. Yeah, or Mexican, yeah.
Mexican, Brazilian were like top, everyone. And it was New York is so, there's so much Spanish and people would just come up to me and start speaking to me in Spanish. And I did Spanish in high school, but it was not at the level of like giving an old lady directions to get somewhere. So I would like try my best, but I swear I must have sent a bunch of women to the wrong place because I really tried and tried to tap into that like Spanish SL life, but don't think I did very well.
Oh no, I used to get a bit of like Arab as well in the UK, which is weird because I don't think I look Arab.
I don't think you do either.
I think my name necklace had something to do with it.
Yeah. People look for like something to like how do I place you?
And also like Dubai, like it's quite an easy like segue to like, oh, are you Arab?
Yeah, true.
No.
Yeah, and then, I mean, for you would probably always say that you're from Dubai.
Yeah, I mean, because, like, so it was always a thing, I remember, when someone used to ask me where I'm from, and, like, my friends that knew me, they were like, well, here we fucking go. Like, so I was born and raised in Dubai, and then, but my passport country is India.
Oh my god, same spiel, like, literally, I have to... Because I at some point shifted from just, like, even trying to, now I just have like a little spiel that I give anyone who asks. So I'm like, I'm Indian, but I was born in Budapest, went to an American school, that's where the accent comes from. Cover all the bases in like one line, so nobody has any questions to ask.
Oh yeah, but like the questions still exist.
Yeah, 100%. Then it goes into the more like intricate questions, and you're like, oh Lord. Essentially, you find a way to get everything covered as quickly as possible. And but the shock factor was quite high in the US. People were always shocked when I said Indian.
I mean, once I said it, I think people were like, oh, okay. But I think also in the UK, there's quite a large population of like British Asians. So they don't really like they wouldn't necessarily think I wasn't Indian, but like they would ask, like they would just think I was British anyway. If that makes sense. No, I never got caught in that middle, but then because my accent changes so much, I think that was the giveaway for them. It was like, oh, where's she from?
Yeah, so for me it was always like they assumed that like my parents were Indian and I grew up in the US, and then that was always the clarification, like, oh, you're first gen. No, that's not what I am.
There's more of that, I think, in this.
There's a lot of it.
They're more conscious of it.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I always, like, if I used to get questioned, it was always like, oh, you must be like half and half, or...
Half and half was a big one, yeah.
If you're Indian, you must be half Indian, half European, or something. It was like, there was never a way that I could be fully 100% Indian.
Yeah. And then
but why not? Like... You know what I mean? Like,
clearly there's an image that they have in their head that you're not fitting.
But it's just so jarring, you know, at that point. And then when you come back to India, and then no one thinks you're Indian either, so you're just like, where do I belong? Yeah, I can't claim the country's nationality that, like, where I was born, because it doesn't exist. Like, as in Dubai, the UAE doesn't give you that right if you were born there. I can't claim my actual national identity because apparently I don't look Indian enough, or I don't sound Indian enough, or I don't act Indian enough. But I can't claim the identity of wherever I'm living because I'm not from there. Yeah. So I think a lot of TCKs go through that. Like,
I agree. It's weird. It is weird because you kind of expect that, okay, once you come back to India, then all that will be gone. But then it comes down to like how you sound and
also your experience.
Yeah, and your experiences.
Our experiences are so different to like people that were born, raised, everything here. To it, unless you're like meeting a similar crowd. Yeah. You know, you can all like. There's so many points where people are like, oh my god, like, that's crazy, you did that. And I was like, is it? Like, it's so normal to me.
Yeah.
But...
Yeah, no, I know. I get, like, your mannerisms are very, like, white girl. And I'm like, what does that mean?
What?
People have said that to me. And I'm just like, I don't understand what that means. I don't know.
Oh,
I still never understood it. And I honestly don't even get into it because I'm like, I don't think that you have a valid reasoning for saying this other than how I sound, and you're just like putting that on me.
Sorry, I'm shook by that. Yes. Someone actually said that.
Multiple people have said this to me. Multiple. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. My mannerisms are my mannerisms. They are just who I am. But okay, whatever makes you comfortable.
I mean, this kind of reminds me of that whole thing that's going on right now with Love Island, with that brown girl.
Oh, yeah, you were telling me about that.
Yeah, where, like, one of the contestants, obviously brown, or, like, British Asian or whatever, and there was a bunch of, like, other British Asians, like, in the community who were like, oh, she doesn't represent who I am as a brown girl. And it was like, is she supposed to? Like, just because she's on Love Island, which is fair enough, it's like reality TV, it's a bit trashy, like we all know what we're getting into with Love Island. Like, you go, girl, like, go do your thing, like, you're gonna get popular, like, you're getting big bucks for it, whatever you are getting for it, if it's something you fancy doing, go for it. But why does the entire, like, reputation of, like, being a brown girl, or, like, being brown, now fall onto her shoulders? Like, that there were people that were saying that she should take, like, Singh out, like, her last name shouldn't be Singh anymore because she's bringing, what's it called, like shame to the Sikh community.
Because she's on
Because
Love
she's on Love Island and she's like, I guess, wearing bikinis all day and she's confident in how she is.
That's
Absolute bullshit, dude.
Yeah, that's so stupid. I mean, I feel like that's kind of like a grass is always greener kind of thing, because like if you don't see anyone who's kind of representing even similar to what you are, then it's like, oh, you know, we don't get representation.
We have this conversation all the time where like we literally can we can count, you know, on our fingers how many people that represent us. Even like that Disney show that you were talking about. Like,
that new one.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, when we were doing our research for this episode, we've talked about, are there any Indian Disney princesses? And obviously there is not one single Indian Disney princess, but last year Disney Junior came out with a show called Mira, Royal Detective. Yeah. It's like an animated show. Literally, I think every Indian or brown actor that we talk about is voicing a character on that show. Kal Penn, Jamila, Frida Pinto, Sarayu Blue, like all these, all the major ones that you can think of at the top of, they're all in that one show.
How many Indian people exist in this world?
Yeah. It's crazy.
Sorry, aren't we like 1/7 of the entire world's population?
Or something like that.
And there's still like a handful of
just a handful
just keep getting
all the roles
for all this stuff.
It's crazy, which is why I think, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I really liked what Mindy did with Never Have I Ever.
Oh yeah,
her casting thing. She cast from just general people. It was an open casting call, and the main girl is just this normal kid from Canada who got picked to be the main girl in a Netflix show, which is so cool. But at the end of the day, that was one, and then I think the rest of the characters were, again, popular, relatively popular Indian actors.
But I guess you need that to kind of...
Yeah, when you're making a show for Netflix, yeah. Although Netflix is quite good for, like, picking relatively unknown people for some of their... Like, a lot of their shows have brought up a lot of new kind of upcoming actors. Not that they don't have their star-studded things as well.
You've got to have a bit of both, so...
But they have been good for that. But yeah, they just started this animated show for Disney Junior, which... Honestly, as a kid, I think, considering it's meant for, like, that really small, you know, like, whatever, 5 to 8, 9-year-old group, I think it's great. Like, it's quite cute. Like, and they're teaching them about, like, Diwali and, like, what that means and stuff. Speaking of Diwali, oh my god, this fucking new Bravo show called Family Karma that also started last year.
Oh, no.
I don't know what's going on, but they keep airing episodes in like March and May and June, and then they're celebrating Diwali, and I'm like, what is going on here? Why is Diwali at any point in the year?
Did they just release it
so late?
But it's a reality show.
Yeah, isn't reality supposed to be like almost?
Yeah, I mean, you'd think so.
Almost at the same time, or like relative. That's like 6-7 months later. I don't know. I was so confused by it because it said release date like June 2nd, and then they were celebrating Diwali, and I was like, I don't understand what's happening here. But not that I've seen the show, but
maybe we should watch an episode.
It's a reality show about a bunch of Indians living in Miami, Florida. So whatever you can expect from that, take what you will from it. But the things you come across, but I mean, I guess it's interesting because a lot of these things that we're naming are very recent. Like all three of the shows that I just named, Never Have I Ever, this new Disney one, and Family Karma, all came up in 2020.
Yeah.
So definitely seeing more representation in whatever aspect.
In general, there is more, like, there, you know, I think because of the backlash that I think the industry has got on the whole of, like, not having diversity and not, you know, showing, like, real faces and, you know, whatever. There's also been a lot of, like, new, or, like, even, like, Chinese, Asian, and, like, you know, stuff that's come up. Like, what was that movie? The really big one. Oh my god.
Oh, Parasite?
No, Parasite was one of them. There was another one with Aquafina, which was really good. which is also like Oscar nominated, I think.
Crazy Rich Asians?
No, Crazy Rich Asians, and another one that Awkwafina was like leading. She had a lead role. Yes. The one about her grandma.
I don't remember the name of it.
I don't remember the name. Yeah.
I don't remember.
But again, you see the same faces.
Yeah. Awkwafina
is like constant
huge right now. Yeah.
Awkwafina.
Yeah.
It's the same people.
I love Constance Wu though.
No, I absolutely adore.
But you're right. It's like it's always like you can list them on one hand. You know, there's not many. And the thing that I find is that still, which kind of comes back to that whole like, do we feel represented? We kind of fall in that TCK category. And for anyone that doesn't know, TCK is third culture kids. So there's not really anything that kind of reflects that experience. It's a lot like, I feel like all the things that we're watching, like Never Have I Ever, it's the immigrant experience.
It's the immigrant experience,
which now,
but also like we're not that.
No, we're not.
Like we're still Indian passport holders.
Yeah, we're Indians.
Still Indian as Indian can get, you know, at that very core base level. But content-wise, can't find anything that relates to us in that way. I guess we are, on the grander scheme of things, quite a small minority of people. When you look at like the grander scale, you know.
I'm just thinking about like all our international schools. There were so many kids. So how small can it be?
And a lot of them were brown.
And a lot of them were brown. Yeah.
And a lot of them. Yeah. I mean, I say that, I think, just to kind of.
I know what you mean.
But like at the same time, like when you look at the amount of people that like the amount of Indians that moved to Dubai in like the 80s and stuff, like my parents, and all of them settled down in Dubai, all of them had kids in Dubai, all of their kids, you know, went to school in Dubai, but they're all, well, majority of them on a, like, you know, passport country is still India. Unless, like, you know, their parents went to the States, had them, and came back, literally, right? No, so their lived experience is, like, not American at all. Right. So I would still, to a certain degree, constitute them in the same boat as me, because they're still very, like, contemporary modern Indians.
Right.
They're not, like, immigrant Indian families lived the American experience. Dubai is still a very, like, Indian societies in Dubai are quite big in a very contemporary way, right? Because we've also had that conversation of, like, when you meet families, like, second gen or first gen, where, like, the parents moved to the UK or the US.
I think that's very prevalent in the UK, US especially, yeah.
So where the parents have moved there and then their children were born there and adapted, like, UK culture, obviously, or US culture, obviously have the passport, went to, like, school there. Their understanding of, like, India on the whole, it's just so different to, like, our understanding.
It's whatever they left with, that's generally what they think India is.
Yeah, so they're, like, stuck in a time warp almost.
So that's what happened when we talk about college. Like, for me, when I went and, you know, started to get to know people and whatever you do when you go to a new place, it was very hard for me to kind of find a connection with that Indian crowd,
100%.
Especially the immigrant Indians.
I honestly thought that those are the people I would get along the most.
Same.
I honestly thought that I would have, like, I would make so many friends who were, like, British Asians and whatever. But when I went to uni and, like, I started, like, you know, sussing people out and, like, figuring things out, those are the people that I just didn't even know how to connect with. Like, I could connect with a, like, white British person so much more, weirdly. Not weirdly, but, you know, in that
I mean, it's just an expectation you have in your head, right? Like, just, we have common factors, so it should essentially, there should be a connection point.
But, like, cultural, factors which are similar, right? Yeah. Like, you would think that a British Asian or an American Indian would, like, would have those cultural Indian factors which you were like, oh yeah, I did that, or oh, did you also, like, not get this or not, you know what I mean? Because although we like celebrated Indian culture and we've done Diwali, we've done Rakhi, we've done like, you know, all these festivals, we've come to India a lot, like we're quite connected to the place. We still lived outside and we still have very like different experiences to like.
Yeah, I mean, I think because when you're like, the best example is like experiencing something like Diwali in India is very different from experiencing it in any other, like, we definitely did things, you know, but it was more like my mom threw a party at home. She'd always like do her little rangoli and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And we had like this whole Indian kind of organization that she was very major in, so they would do like a party. But it's very different. It's just like this it's you that's creating the atmosphere, versus in India the atmosphere is around you. It's like it's everywhere. When Diwali's coming, you know Diwali's coming. So there's that, like, we grew up kind of creating that experience for ourselves, which these immigrant families have tried to kind of keep some,
But
in a very, I think, just in a really deeply traditional way that doesn't necessarily resonate with us who have actually lived here and seen how India has progressed.
Even before moving here, like we've celebrated Diwali here, we've been here for like Ganpati and, you know, all the big ones. Like we have been in India for those things even before we lived here. So we've seen it, but it was just really different being in the UK. Like it was just, I mean, I'm sure it was the same in the States as well.
I feel like just when
we had to create those moments as well, but it was still very different. Like, okay, like in London, for example, Trafalgar Square usually does like a Diwali thing, right? So you'll have like your like food stalls, there's a stage, and there's like, you know, people that go and do like the traditional like dances and stuff. Like you can watch all of that. I did that a couple of times with you know, a friend or two, and that would always make you feel good because you were like, oh my god, I'm around people. It's like the one time you actually
want to be around
everyone.
I mean, these big cities, New York, London, they're such melting pots. You can definitely find your thing. But I think what was more jarring for me was like the home aspect of a lot of people. So like they were like, oh yeah, my parents, you know, they won't let me drink and they won't let me like stay out past midnight, and like I can't talk about like girls or boys or whatever. And I was like, I can't relate to this. I'm super open with my parents. I smoke cigarettes with my parents. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. I felt like whenever they would talk about their home life and stuff, it was very traditional and like just not what I had been exposed to at all, in terms of whether it be my family or even like all of our friends. You know, we have very open homes, and we all know each other's parents, and they're okay with us like drinking and going out and being at each other's houses. And it was very jarring for me because it felt like almost like what our parents grew up in is the kind of thing that the people that our age were growing up in. And I was like, I haven't experienced any of this. My parents never really put like limitations on me like that. No. Obviously be responsible, but very much like allow us to live our own lives and do what we want, and understand that we're kind of growing up into adults, so we got to experience all that for ourselves without having to hide it. And
I do get what you're saying, but I mean, I guess that's been the constant like reiteration of like brown culture through like media as well, has just been like, oh, like they can't do this, they can't do that, you know.
Really like structured strict households, which is not what any of us experience.
That art film that I watched, it's on Netflix.
Yes.
It's called What Will People Say? And it's basically a Norwegian movie. So it's a Pakistani family that lives in Oslo. So the kids are obviously Norwegian. The parents moved from Pakistan to Norway, I guess, for their dad's work. And the story basically follows this girl and how she is just growing up as a normal like European girl, but she comes home to like a very different, you know, atmosphere, and like that pressure of like not disappointing the family and like not poking fun or, you know, testing the family values. That was kind of the entire storyline. You know, she goes through some whack shit, which, like, I was speaking to my mom about this, and mom was like, yeah, you know, there are a lot of families, I mean, she's seen it more obviously in like Pakistani households, and where I guess also you have the whole aspect of religion, and mom was saying, yeah, she's like, there have been stories of like, you know, people that have like been sent back to Pakistan or sent to Pakistan to live with extended family, when, you know, the smallest thing went wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I think Never Have I Ever, which keeps coming up because it is one of the first shows to kind of shine a light on the whole like immigrant but Indian experience kind of thing. I think that at the end of season 1, that's basically what they had decided to do as well, because
Move back to
because the girl and her mom, she lost her dad, and they were just struggling, and so the family in India was like, come back here, and she was kind of, they felt like she was kind of going crazy or whatever, like she just was losing her.
Yeah, they hinted at that.
Yeah, so they were like, you should move back to India. And I think the new season is coming out, and I'm pretty sure they're kind of dealing with that whole thing now. I don't see it happening in terms of like story, but it's definitely, I think it's thrown out there a lot, and I know people in real life who have suggested this, but it's so...
But I mean, you know what? It's really funny, okay? It's really interesting. I've actually just clocked this, so bear with.
Yeah, okay.
Like, for example, when I obviously had to leave the UK because I wasn't getting a job, visa was ending, right? I mean, I was lucky enough to have 2 options. I could have gone back to Dubai to be with dad, or I could come to Bombay and be with mum, right? And I think, like, I really, really struggled with this decision because to a certain extent, Dubai wasn't really somewhere that I saw myself being at all. Like, I'd been there, done that kind of thing.
Right.
Grew up there. Not, like, I've never really felt on a level with that place. Like, obviously, having moved a lot, I can vibe pretty much anywhere. But there was something that just wasn't clicking for me in Dubai. And so, obviously, the other option was India. Not that there would have been anything bad about coming to Bombay and living with mum, because, I mean, mum and I, for the most part, get along. You know, she doesn't, like, we don't have a very straining relationship in that way. Like you said, she's quite open and, like, happy to have people over. Like, we drink together. We, like, you know, we do have a very good relationship as mum and daughter. But in that same breath, I was so nervous. And I think that it stems back to, like, what we see and what we hear about, like, moving to India. And this whole, like, you know, shitstorm that occurs if you move back to India. Like, you know, you're not going to get this, you're not going to get that, you're not going to, like, will you ever leave? Will you have the opportunity to do this? Will you, like, what, all these, like, anyways, life is so full of, like, what ifs and unknowns, and, you know, you don't know, right? And actually it was another friend of mine who, like, she's like, just go, like, no one's saying you're gonna get stuck, no one's gonna say that you have to be there forever, but right now you know as well as I do, as well as anyone else knows, that that's the best place for you to be. It will, like, it'll give you a bit of stability, you'll be at home, you already said you had, like, friends there, fine, you have to reconnect with them, that's life, you're fine. And, like,
Clearly.
Yeah, clearly. I mean, I'm fine. Just for the record, it all worked out. We're grand. Like, 10 out of 10.
Just so you know.
I'm fine. But I went through that whole process as well, right? Because all you hear is traumatizing experiences, or, like, just adults, I guess, to a certain extent, who are meant to know better or have more experience.
But it's always the people who are not in India that are telling you these things.
Exactly.
And it's just this this is also, it's so weird, but like when you're an expat, you have there's this expectation that's put on you of like, you're gonna stay. Like, figure out a country to go live in, even if no country is taking you. Go find a fucking country. It's not that easy. It's not that simple. It's not, and again, I think this is from that like concept of in the 80s, 70s, 80s, whatever, not even 90s. It was a little bit easier. It was
I literally say this all the time.
But they're living in this concept, and I'm like, it doesn't work like that anymore. It's not that way. And
I mean, globalization has been pulled back so much over the last like 5-6 years. I want to say since we went to uni, because I know that was a huge turning point, I think, for a lot of us like Indians who were like going to uni abroad and all of that. I know in the UK, 2013 is when they stopped their graduate visas. Obviously, they've started it again recently, but 2013 is when they stopped those. And they were kind of pulling back on immigration and, you know, people moving in. And you know, since then, I think we've been in a shitstorm. I'm sure there was stuff in the US as well.
Yeah, a ton.
And we've been going through this freaking like shitstorm of life, which is like our parents telling us, no, you can be anywhere. The world is your oyster. And I'm like,
that phrase is from the 80s. Like, literally.
I was like, where am I meant to go? Like, I don't even know how to go about this. Like, I'm trying so hard.
Yeah.
But unless something comes my way, like, you know, there are people out there that are like willing to drop their jobs as like, you know, like proper like director level, like, you know, doing really well over here to go and be like taxi drivers in Canada just to move across the world. Do you know what I mean?
That's insane.
Oh, maybe we'll get a better life there.
Yeah.
And I was like,
that's a bit much.
but like, I get like, okay, I know that happened in like the 80s, 70s, earlier. Where in like 2021 today, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we are like 30 years past that. Why is that still a way of thought? Like, why would you drop your decorated career here? Why isn't it that you could just get the same job or a similar job over there? If you wanted to move, why wouldn't you be looking for that? Why is it that, oh, I'll leave this job here, like corporate life isn't for me, la 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 la, whatever, to then go be like a taxi driver? I'm not even saying that don't drive a car, like, sure, like if you want to go and like, I mean, you know, to each their own, to if you really think that that's the way to go. But
I just think it's a really large price to pay for that.
But you can get a lot of that, like, it's big cities across the world are on par with each other.
Yeah.
To, like, for most things, every city has its own charm, right? So fair enough, you know, you don't like San Francisco, you like London, cool, it's still big city on big city. Mumbai, Delhi, New York, you know, like, I don't know, Singapore, Dubai, Manila, Bangkok, like, literally any capital metropolitan city in the entire world has similar things, right? You're gonna find the same things,
similar lifestyle,
all these cities. But yes, okay, each one has their own like thing, each one is slightly different. That's culture, and that's just how it is. But why is it that you have to move to fucking like Toronto and like give up your office job or whatever to settle for something so much less just because, oh, I'm in the West? Like, it really bothers me.
Yeah, there's just a lot of kind of pressure put on it, and just like, it's better, you know, it just has to be better.
West is best.
West is best, literally, always. That's just it's the general thought process, and it's fed into you, especially.
It's just embedded now, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like, it's there, and you have to like check yourself and be like, no, that's it. Don't think like that. But it's just been told to you your whole life.
Yeah.
And
you're gonna move. You're gonna live on this side of the world.
It's just and it's so expected. Like. Like, I remember when I was, when I decided not to stay, and I was just like, what's the point? Like, with the whole, the concept in the US is when you go to college, then you get a year on your visa to work there. The thing is that companies know that after that year is over, they're not going to sponsor you. So you get really shit jobs. It's like not enough to pay rent. What's the point? That's like losing a year of my life, of my career, just to be there and get what experience? Nothing really, because you're giving me like, I'll get a better job here. I'll be able to save more money because I'll be at home. I'll progress way further in my career, especially in what I'm doing, because if you come back to India and say I worked with like this production house in New York, they're like, we don't care. That doesn't make any difference to us. Like, they care more about, okay, you studied there, you have that they put a lot of like importance on, but they really don't care if you did an internship at some random studio. It makes no difference to their lives. They want to know like what actual work you've been doing. Whereas when I came back here, immediately, like within a couple months, I was on a set. I was doing more important work than I would have been doing there, and actually saving money because I was living at home and not all of it wasn't going to rent and existing in a big city. And so that was my entire thing. Like, I don't see the point. I don't find that my life is so much better here that it's worth that.
Yeah, no. I mean, yeah, we've all done it.
Yeah.
Like, I struggled and went through that whole process as well. Probably spent more time doing it than you did, on the whole.
Yeah, no, I think I went for about 6 months and then I was like, no, not for me. I'm gonna...
See, I think, I found that the 6-month thing in Singapore. So, and that was towards the end of my first, like, my undergraduate degree, and when that visa ended, I kind of went straight to Singapore almost. And so my mind was busy. So I don't even think I had time to, like, process anything. I was like, okay, I'm in another big city and I'm adjusting. And I think by the time I adjusted there, it was time to leave.
Right. You were working in Singapore?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was working in Singapore for 6 months. It was like, so, like work holiday visas?
Right.
Most countries don't allow Indians to come in on work holiday visas as well. Whatever.
No, because we're notorious for trying to immigrate.
No, I know. But Singapore, right, does their work holiday passes based on where you've been educated. They don't do it based on your passport country, which is something I really, really honestly think that countries need to look into. Because
I agree.
You're picking up on, like, okay, so they have a list of universities across like all over the world, right? And they're like, if your university is on this list or from this, like, in this country, then you can apply for this visa.
Okay.
So obviously, like, the UK, the US, like, all your normal places are on there. But that means that you're not putting that much importance on someone's passport country, because what I always say is also that, like, yes, India is a huge country. Yes, we have 1 billion people here, but, like, majority of that country, of our country, cannot move on a work holiday pass. Like, they cannot come based on that visa structure because they're not even educated to that point. Like, so I don't know. Like, and obviously, if someone applies for it, you can freaking reject it. Like, you've done it before. Yeah. So I think that, like, the way that Singapore goes about their work holiday pass is so much better. Which is why I
actually didn't know they did that. That's so
I
interesting.
mean, I didn't know until obviously I got that opportunity, and we were basically trying to figure out how, like, what the visa situation was.
Right.
Because for me to go in on a work visa, again, Singapore has become quite tight on immigration.
It has, yeah.
So they were like, let's see how can we kind of go about this. Yeah. And we found this work holiday pass, which is like one of my friends came to Singapore on my recommendation to get a work holiday pass, and she's still there. It's been 2 years.
Oh wow, is this the one that works with Charles and Keith?
No, I used to work.
Oh. Oops.
That was me.
Well, good for her. That's awesome. I mean, and a lot of time it does work out that way. And I think
but she also tried really hard. Like, let me just tell you, like, it wasn't easy.
No, yeah.
Like, she went through a hell and back.
It is so draining, and it is so much, it does take so much out of you, and so much of that, I think, comes from that expectation that we're talking about. Coming back, and for me, like, the whole, because you're there, and they're saying, oh, you're not a citizen, you don't have a thing, so we can't give you a job, and then you come here, and it's very weird, because, again, it was kind of like I wasn't Indian enough for certain things.
You're not gonna understand this, you're not gonna...
I mean, this is even now, and I've been back for 2 years now. I literally had a job interview, and I told you about this 2 weeks ago, and the guy, he basically wanted to know what I was kind of doing on my last job, on my last shoot job, and I was explaining to him, like, the director was an American guy, so I was doing a lot of his communication for him for all the departments, like liaison,
right.
and because he didn't speak Hindi, and I was like, he didn't speak Hindi, so, you know, I was communicating for him a lot, and he just, like, smiled, like, it was this very, like, uncomfortable smile, like a knowing smile, and he was like, do you speak Hindi? And I was like, I literally have sat here for 10 minutes explaining to you that my job was to communicate for him. And so, I mean, I didn't say it in that many words, but basically I was like, what did I say? I was quite proud of myself, because also I was very, like, I was, like, kind of shaking, because I was like, oh my god, you're going to stand up for yourself right now, because, I was like, are you asking me that because of my accent? Because, yes, I have lived in India for many years, as you can see from my resume that is in front of you, and also, as I explained, I was communicating for him in Hindi. Yes, I do speak Hindi, and he kind of just was like, oh, okay. Like, he didn't know what to do, because I was very, like, firm, but also I tried to be firm and professional and, like, nice about it, but, like, at the same time, like, why would you ask me that? I'm sitting here, and I told this story to Sid, and he was like, yes, the podcast! It's the podcast! It's done! Like, look what it's done! And I was like, oh, that's so true, actually. Like, it just, like, it did kind of come from this. Like, we're talking about it so much, and I just felt like I'm talking about it on the podcast. I need to apply it in my life, because I know like a year ago, if that happened to me, I would have just, like, giggled and been like, oh, yeah, I do. Like, I would have pacified the situation.
All been bad for it?
Yeah, 100%. I would have pacified the situation. I would have totally, like, not stood up for myself. And I was like, I'm sitting here and explaining this to you, and you're still asking me that question. And it's just because of how I sound or how I look, or, you know, I told him my whole background. Why?
That's so bad. But
Why?
You got the job, huh?
Yeah.
So, I mean, surely it wasn't that bad.
I mean, I really did try to be as professional about it as I did, but I was very firm. And I think maybe that was a good thing that I was. Maybe that helped me get the job, because I wasn't just like, oh, yeah. Go me and go our podcast. Yes. And yay, I was happy about it. 100%. But the whole experience itself it still happens, and it's so jarring, and you're just... You're never given credit for, like, just being brown or Indian.
I guess, like, there is clout and stuff that comes with, like, sounding the way that we do.
There is.
Like, but then in that, it's like you're trying to remove that Indian aspect of who I am. Like, you don't want to see me as, like, an Indian person in that same way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose someone who probably had the same credentials as you but didn't sound like you, they would be like, you're probably not the right person for the job, for this job.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, there is a certain clout that comes with it, and I think in a lot of these things, we are very privileged to have had the experiences that we have, but it's just, we talk about navigating all of it, and it's just really confusing, and it just feels like, oh, where do I go? Like, you're almost like trying to find a pocket to fit in, and none of them, like, fit right, you know?
Like, we don't, like, this is the other thing, right? We don't actually need to, like, fit into anything.
No.
But it's like people keep trying to put us in a box.
Yeah.
And, like, I mean, we get this even, like, when I was in Pondicherry for Christmas, we wanted to go to something as small as like we were going to the botanical gardens.
Right.
Okay. And at the front, like, they were like, you know, obviously, like, the prices to go in are different. If you're a tourist, you pay slightly more. Not that we couldn't have paid the 100 rupees or whatever, or, you know, it wasn't even like that much. But it's the principle of it. The guy was just literally standing there and being like, you're not Indian. I was like, I have an Indian passport. I showed him my passport, and he's like, that doesn't count. I was like, that's an official government document. Like, what do you mean?
The most official government
he's
document.
Like, no, if you don't have an Aadhaar card, then it doesn't count. And I was like, dude, I've moved here 2 months ago. I don't have, like, I'm in the process of getting my card, but I don't have it yet. I have an Indian passport, though. Like, what do you want me to say? He's like, no, it doesn't count. So at that point, like, the principle of it, I was like, absolutely no.
That's crazy. Wow. That's weird, though. I've never heard of anyone rejecting an Indian passport.
Dude, I mean,
as like an official document.
We walked around Pondicherry, everyone thought we were French. Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, even the way that people approach you, I think, like, as soon as someone hears us speak or just notices that maybe we have that, like,
I mean, the thing is that over here, like in India, no one doubts that you're Indian.
No.
Right? So you are Indian.
Yeah.
Right? In other places, people never think you're Indian.
Yeah.
Over here, no one necessarily doubts that you're Indian. But, like, even, like, your interactions with taxi drivers and everything is just like, oh, they try to speak English with you. And I'm like,
oh my God, yeah, I know.
Like,
that's
fine.
so funny.
Or, like, they want to ask you about your, like, you know, where you've lived and
where you
know.
live, yeah.
And it's like...
I do have a couple Uber drivers who didn't believe that I was Indian, which was always so funny, because I was like, no, I'm Indian.
Yeah, I mean, that happens, like, no one thinks mom's ever Indian.
Yeah.
And you're like, bro, just get over it now.
I know. But at the same time, like, I think there's this kind of thing that I've noticed some people will, like, change the way they speak a little to you, or like try and match your...
Yeah, I don't think I've been out enough to like
it's very funny. I mean, no, like, I get it. I think it would happen in any situation, but I don't see myself as that. Like, I'm like, we're the same, right? We both live in Bombay, we're both from here, like, we're the same. But suddenly it's like I notice a kind of shift in the way that they're talking to me, and the way that they're, like, the things that they try to talk to you about are more like America-centric. And I'm like, okay, I went to college there, but I don't really, like...
I don't know America.
Yeah, it's not like, I don't have any, like, what's it called? Like, there's no loyalty there. No, like, it's not, I'm Indian. So it's very interesting to see how people interact with you and kind of, but in a job aspect, for sure, they somehow put you on a little bit of a pedestal. And not in the right way either.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not helping you. It's just putting you in a box and saying, oh, okay, you sound like this, so you can help us with this. And it just doesn't, that's not what I do, though.
Yeah, but, like, the expectations are just so different, right? Because you're not from here, as per usual. I mean, my cousin tells me all the time, she's like, you're the Farang child in the family, so, like... You can do whatever you want. And I was like, that's not true. Like, we all know that.
My whole family says that to me, too.
She's literally just, you know.
The funniest is on our, like, group chats and stuff, if they ever say a Hindi word, someone will always, before I can, like, sometimes I don't know the word, I will be honest. Sometimes I don't know the word, but before I can even ask, someone will send the English translation and be like, for you, Manya. And I was like, I don't know whether to be offended or grateful, because,
you should
like,
be grateful for that. Just be like, thank you.
Yeah. But sometimes it's a really simple word, and I'm like, no, I know that. Like, I'm not that bad.
You should do it back.
I should do it back.
I
should do it back. But it took me a long time to get comfortable speaking Hindi in front of people.
Oh my God, same.
Oh, it was such a, like, I wouldn't. In front of friends, in front of anyone, I wouldn't speak Hindi, because obviously the accent does add a little bit of, like, a twang to the way that you're speaking. I didn't learn Hindi formally.
Yeah, no, neither.
It was all, like, you know, just taxi drivers, maids, whatever. The shopkeeper, in the house, yeah, like whoever you have to communicate, drivers, whatever. So you kind of pick it up, but I didn't know the like male and female differences, and like so I would use like male things for myself. It's so confusing. And I would just say things framed wrong, and so I got very embarrassed for the longest time. Now I'm like, oh my god, whatever. If I say it wrong, correct me, and I'll remember it. And I do also make more of a concerted effort to like find out, or if I'm corrected, then like remind myself.
Yeah, no, of course. Like, so now, I mean, I was just in Delhi, right? And like my friend that I was staying with, she's British, so like she doesn't know Hindi or anything. And I think like Delhi is like they speak a lot more Hindi. You know what I mean? Like over here you can get away with. It's a lot of English here. It's a lot of Hinglish or English. Like you can get away with.
Bombay specifically, though.
Yeah. You can get away with, you know, your broken Hindi or whatever.
Yes, you really can.
But in Delhi you can't. Like you can't, not to the extent that you can over here, because they are just a lot more traditional, and that, like, you know, like they do speak like proper
that should Hindi.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, getting in like Ubers and stuff, like obviously like my friend gets around, like it's not like she doesn't, but with me being there, like I was able to guide Uber drivers here, there, wherever, like answer the phone for her so that she doesn't have to deal with all that. And I remember her and her friend who lives with her, they were both like, Arish, can you just stay? Because, like, you just make life
Are they both British? Okay.
She's like, can you just stay here? Because you can just make life so much easier. And I was like, what, with my shitty broken Hindi? Like, sure.
No, to be fair, even now, if I'm, like, around, like, Sid or someone who I know, like, I'll give the phone to them to, like, explain to like, a Zomato guy where to come. Because it's just, they just understand it better.
But, like,
No, I will do it.
You know what I mean? Like, I did that just yesterday. I, you know, passed the phone to someone to, like, speak to the Uber driver. I was like, I want to deal with it.
There are times where you're just like, oh, I don't want to repeat myself 4 or 5 times. I will definitely say my Hindi is not the best, but I speak it. I get around. I can communicate.
Yeah,
I can work.
Get around, and you know what?
I can do everything.
That's what matters, though.
Yeah. Nobody ever has a like hard time understanding me.
No.
Unless it's like one random guy and I don't, like, maybe I'm missing a word or something. It's very random.
But you know, I get really flustered. Like if I get flustered, like if I get angry and then I need to speak in Hindi to someone, it's so difficult because like my brain just wants to speak all the shit in English. Like I don't want to.
So yesterday when that fucking dunzo guy dropped my eggs, I was so pissed off, but I just kept repeating the same line because I was like, oh, I have so much anger, but I don't know what to say, because it's just like, so I just kept saying, like, I told you not to do it. Like, I just kept saying that in Hindi, and oh my god, it was, yeah, jeez. That guy really made my blood boil.
Do you remember in Parent Trap when, like Annie, like, goes to California to live with her dad, and then she gets really angry and she, like, rides home on the horse and then comes back and starts speaking French.
Yes.
Because she's, like, so flustered.
Yes,
and
I remember that.
She just goes off in French. That's what it feels like.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
This bilingual life's a little tough.
Dude, do you ever have it where, like, you are trying to think of a word in, like, one language and then you think of it in every other language but the language you want to...
Yeah, it definitely happens, like,
I'll be
more
thinking
often
of
than
a
I
word,
wish.
like, in... Like, I need to think of it in Hindi, or, like, what is the word in Hindi, and I'll remember what it is in French.
That happens to me a lot with Spanish.
And I'm like, dude...
I'm so in awe of, like, people that, like, speak 3-4 languages and fluently, like, each one, and can, like, shift from one to the other. I'm like, wow, I don't know how you do that. My brain would be, like, a muddled mess if I even attempted it. It's amazing. But it took me a long time to get over that embarrassment of speaking Hindi in front of people.
Yeah.
It was tough.
But, like, it's crazy because, like people, not Indian people, like, don't really care in their broken language or whatever. They'll say whatever they want. So why do we feel like we can't be imperfect?
I don't know.
Do you know what I mean?
I was so embarrassed.
It's so weird.
And really shouldn't have been, because I had zero formal training. I can't read. I can't read and write.
I neither can.
Yeah, I can't read and write, but I can speak and I can get around. And what you said about Bombay versus Delhi, people do say Bombay Hindi. It's a very specific type of Hindi. Even if you go to like Pune, they'll be like, you guys, the Hindi in Bombay is something else entirely. You said something very interesting about...
Did I?
Yes, you did! About, which we kind of talked about earlier, which is when we were in the US or the UK or somewhere, people honestly had a hard time even believing that we were Indian, whereas here we don't have that so much. And I think that partly has to do with our skin color. We're not necessarily, like, I think in the West they tend to look for like darker skin.
Yes.
And
so I had a really interesting conversation with someone a while ago, and they were like, why is it that, you know, the actresses and actors in Hollywood that make it as, you know, South Asian, like they're part of the South Asian community, and then they make it big in Hollywood, why is it that they're all like of a certain skin color or darker?
Yeah, I've noticed that too. There's very few fair.
It's because, like, in Hollywood, then they wouldn't be processed as South
right.
Asian.
Which has happened. We've seen that with, like, the few that we have seen, like Hannah Simone, who plays TC in New Girl. She's quite fair. I think she's mixed. Is she mixed?
I think she's mixed.
She's mixed. But essentially they made her an Indian character in the show, but only kind of touched upon a little bit later. I think at the early parts of the show, you couldn't place her.
Yeah.
And there was no sort of mention of it. I think another one was...
Oh, yeah. There's this really random show in the UK called Some Girls. It was a really short show on BBC. It was a really good show. You should watch it. This guy, he was basically the love interest of one of the main characters. And he, like the actor himself, Jasu Ahluwalia, it's like Sikh, British Indian, like in Indian, you know, but you would not be able to tell that he was like South Asian or part of that community because he's really fair. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he could have been anything.
Did they let him just pass?
No, so yeah, he didn't have that much of like a character development, like go into his family and stuff. So you didn't actually get to see that part of who he was. But then I remember being really interested in like the cast and stuff. Because they obviously had another brown girl in the show. She's been in a few things afterwards as well. She was in Afterlife, the Ricky Gervais show.
Oh, yes, yes.
She had like a little role there. So I've seen her face around. But yeah, I didn't even realize that this guy was brown.
That's crazy.
Until I like
So
Googled
that's what
it.
I realized. A lot of these, like the ones that are fairer, basically if you're casting it to be Indian, then they should be of a certain skin tone.
Yeah.
And it has to, because that fits that profile that they have in their head of what Indian is. And you see this in, not that, I mean, and the thing is that I think the point I'm trying to make is we have such a range of skin tones in India, from like very fair to fairly dark, and it depends a lot on the region that you're from and all of that, genetics, whatever. But the representation has been narrowed into that, like, specific. So when someone sees something that isn't that, it's so shocking for them. Yeah. Whereas here, it's like the aspiration, right? It's aspirational to be fairer, and a lot of importance is put on that.
Luckily, we're at a point where things are changing.
Yeah.
Thank God.
So basically, when we're talking about all of these, I was just trying to think of other characters, because I know there are some, but it's just so hard to even think of, like, brown characters that we didn't. The thing is, when we were kids, like we talked about, we didn't see much representation of ourselves. It's slowly changing now, like we're saying. Yeah. But the big one, I think, when we were kids, which was around the world, was Bend It Like Beckham.
Yeah, 100%.
It was so big for our community.
It was like one of those movies, I think any brown girl is just like, yes. But it's just because it's the only one where, okay, the girl is like doing her thing. Like, okay, there's still family pressure, but she's like playing football. She's not like a nerd.
Yeah.
She's like a normal girl. Like,
yeah, this normal British Indian girl who's, wants to play football. Obviously, they've made the family aspect very tough for that, and she has to keep it a secret and blah, blah, blah. But it was just such a big thing to see
a brown
girl in a movie like that was so big, and then even the name, was associated with the biggest football star in the world at the time, and like it was a huge moment for, I think, especially Indian girls who were not living in India, who were growing up outside of India, to see even the slightest bit of representation.
Oh yeah, because like she didn't have an Indian accent.
Yeah.
Well, she was British anyway, so she had a English accent, which is just like, oh, good. Like it
was so major. Yeah. But the fact that from that point, which I think that movie must have come out when we were 10, probably. We couldn't have been older than that.
We can check.
Yeah, we can check the year, but it must have been around 8 or 10 years old. From there to now, where we're 26, and it doesn't feel like there's that much addition. And the actress who played her has gone on to do American shows and stuff, and is now part of that small group of people.
That little handful.
That little handful.
Bow.
Her and the one who plays her sister, who has been on The Good Wife and stuff like that. Archie Punjabi, who's also great. But we just have, it's been very slow to see that representation, and still feel like there are many holes. It's interesting because a way that I have filled that hole is through my social media.
Oh, yes.
Because I realized relatively recently, I think it took me longer than it should have, to realize how white my Instagram was. And I mean to say, like, everyone that I was following was white. I wasn't really following that many, like, brown people or brown pages. It's not even people, it's like pages, because my Instagram, I mostly follow like pages.
To be fair, like, they didn't really they didn't exist before last year.
Yeah, a lot of them popped up last year.
I went on this whole rampage, like, kind of June last year, when the whole BLM movement kind of picked up, and like I really wanted to understand, my like how I could do my best to like be an ally and all of this stuff.
From the brown perspective.
But again, like, I remember reading pages which were all very, like, white-centric. And they just weren't resonating with me because I was like, I'm not that, And I think that is my point where I was like, wow, okay, I really need to understand who I am as a brown person because, okay, I might not fit into a certain mold of, like, what everyone expects me to be as a brown person. But at the end of the day, like, most of my lived experience is as a brown girl, and it always will be. That's just, I am Indian. It's my passport country. I may not have lived there, but I've grown up in that culture. And so I basically went on, like, a hunt to find resources which were relevant for me as part of the South Asian community or me as a brown person, because I think that our lived experience is so different, even relative to the like BLM movement. But I think in that search, I found a lot of pages that I did connect with, and I'd never been allowed to kind of see myself as a brown girl. Not saying that like I wasn't. I had brown friends, like I was always making jokes about, like brown things, essentially. But I don't know, I'd never felt that connected to it until I found these pages. I mean, like, shout out to, like, their, like, Brown Girl magazine. They're doing great things.
Great. Brown Girl Mag is great.
Brown Girl Gang.
Brown Girl Memes. And then there's Brown Girl Therapy, which is great. I think that's a great resource, too. Shout out to all these pages because they really have made a difference. And honestly, it's the first time that I felt like, because it was always, like, brown culture essentially was, like, then it was really Indian. And I was like, I can't really, that doesn't resonate with me so much. Like, I can't where these pages have really kind of, you can see reflections of yourself. There are things you relate to. There are things where you're like, oh my God, it's not just me. And oh my God, I've experienced that. And it just, you feel kind of seen in a way that I have never really felt from like TV or movies.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That is, and it's so real because these are real people and these are people's experiences. And the fact that we are seeing more of this in social media, I'm hoping like, you know, Brown History is a great page.
Love Brown History.
It's such a good page, and I'm hoping to see a lot of that like translated into content because it's so, it's there. It's there. It's all there, but it's just about like, it's just about taking that step, and we are trying to be those people as well of like, don't make that face at me.
I'll write it with you.
All right, yeah, let's write a TV show or a movie or something. Coming to you from Don't Cry Podcast, a movie.
One day, someday soon. This is, you know, you're gonna put this in the podcast. It's gonna be there forever. We're gonna do it.
Yeah, that's
make
true.
A movie.
We're saying it now.
Or TV show. No.
TV show. I don't want to make a movie.
I don't like movies.
Yeah, I want to make a TV show as well. But following these pages felt like really like I was kind of, like you said, owning a lot of that brownness that I had not necessarily been able to own before, and reclaiming it as we talked about, and saying like, this is part of who I am, and I don't necessarily need to put myself in this pot and just be like, or this, you know, box, and just be like, this is what I find funny, and this is what I can understand, or what I've experienced. It's still a journey, and I think I'm still finding pages once in a while. Something will pop up, and it's so fun to actually have that, like...
Yeah, like, you know, like, even the ones, I think there's, like, Brown Girl Therapy or something like that.
Yeah.
Like, even those experiences that, like, so many brown girls have been through, like, the way that they've had to deal with family issues, and the way that, like, you just don't see that in the West as much. I'm not saying that, you know, a white girl hasn't been through the same family experiences that I have, or they're better or worse or anything. But I'm saying that culturally that dynamic is so different, you know? And so it's so nice to see that, like, out in the world, like, for people to see. And I really hope that at some level, like, whoever's listening to our podcast is resonating, because that's kind of what we want to do.
We talked about Brown Girl Magazine, and a lot of the topics that we talk about when we're doing research, the first hit is always Brown Girl Magazine, and it just feels like really there is something there. Like, it's across the board. People are feeling these things, so I really do hope that even what we're talking about is resonating with people, and it also makes me feel like we're not alone in our experiences, and we're not crazy. We're not alone,
we're all
and it's
in this
so nice.
Together, all us brown gals.
I know, and
boys.
And boys. Boys are welcome. We are reclaiming it, like we named our podcast Brown Girls Don't Cry. We're not crying about it, but we are trying to figure out the whole process, and
exciting.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's good.
It's a journey.
You're my favorite brown girl.
Oh my God, thank you.